Go. Let's look at I Got a Feeling. Here it is. I'm going to hit Performance Home. Well, first of all, again, in the band I'm in, I need to play that initial, right, which is really played by a guitar, and it's a pretty heavily affected guitar, a guitar with some pretty serious effects. But in this case, in the band I'm in, the guitar player was doing other things on the intro, and they needed me to play that part. So we don't need these ARPs on. Turn those off. Okay. So what is actually 1, 2, 3, 4 parts making that sound. Let's look at them one at a time. This one, it's one of the steel guitar sounds on the MODX. And then part 2 is a clavinet. It's called clavi-amped. Gets a little brighter. Then I've also got something called clean ballad finger. That's a guitar sound again on the MODX. And I've also got another a clean electric guitar over here in part 7, right? So it's a very bright, kind of a twangy sound. I did my best to duplicate it. It's not perfect, but it in the context of a live gig, it works fine. And then after that initial first 8 bars, then the strings come in. And I've got strings up here. The guitar parts, by the way, I'm playing down in the region of G2 to D3. Strings I've got up here in the A4, G4 area, region, okay? And this one is called tremolo strings, so it's a pretty subtle tremolo. And that I've got layered with string ensemble K. And together that's that, and that goes on for quite a while. That part occurs almost through the entire song. I've also set up a special effect here. Okay, it's a whoosh. And where did the whoosh come from? Well, it came from my computer again. I couldn't find really what I wanted on the MODX. The MODX might have that kind of a sound somewhere, but I guess I kind of gave up looking for it, and I found one in Logic Pro 10, saved it out as a WAV file, brought it over to the MODX on the thumb drive, and imported it, downloaded it into the MODX. So that's where that whoosh came from. I do have a second scene that just unmutes part 6. And part 6 is... Oh yeah, I know what yeah. I was trying to think what I used that for, but in the middle of the song, there's a part that kind of goes... And I kind of like this particular sound because the harder you hit this, the brighter it is. You hit it softly and it's kind of muted. And I've got it set up to play in the region of C#4 up to G6, which is pretty much the end of the keyboard. But anyway, so that just comes in, it's kind of like a bridge section of the song, not really a chorus. I bring that part in by hitting the Scene 2 button. Scene 1 just has that part muted out. And the strings do come back in later on in the song. Anyway, you get the idea. That's I Got a Feeling. And let's look at the song Straight Up by Paula, Abdul. And there was a lot going on in this one too. I just pressed Performance Home. So yeah, I've got all 8 parts filled with stuff. I've got 4 scenes. Right now scene 1 is on, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4. So scene 1, and I try to set my scenes up so that they, as a song is played, I progressively move up to the subsequent scenes. So scene 1 is usually going to be the beginning of a song. In this case, it's the part that happens right at the intro. That's a sound pretty much that starts straight up. Just for clarity's sake, I'm going to turn off all these ARPs. They should have been off anyway. I apologize for that. Anyway, part 1 is that sound. Same sound. I've got it spread left and right. What is it? Well, let's look at it. It's, if I look at the elements, yeah, it's called PWM strings. PWM, M as in Mike, strings. Okay, that's the first 2 parts there. The third part is just a French horn. That's kind of, yeah. When I hold the note, you can hear that French horn. It's just adding a little fatness to it, right? And so that's it for that part of the song. And I'm playing this part down in the C1 to C2 range on the left side of the keyboard. It actually stops at F2 up there, right? Next for this song, I've got in the C3 range. So the song starts bop, then 1. So that sound is, it's called PWM stabs for the most part. Okay, and what else happens in this song? Oh yeah, there's a there's a fat synth in there, and for that I've got that's parts 5 and 6. Part 5 is called Big Drone. And part 7 is called Fat, P-H-A-T, Dino. And together. And I'm not going to play the whole song for you, just giving you an idea of how I set the keyboard up. This song had a lot going on in it, and it took me a while to set it up and figure out where to put everything on the keyboard. It got a little complicated. I'm going to move to the very end part of the song, where scene 4, a whistle, a fluty whistle comes in. And for that, it's just a single part. It's called pan flute. I thought it was pretty close to what's on the record. Pan flute. Yeah, so that's, I'm not going to go into any more of the intricacies of Straight Up. It's a challenging song for a keyboard player because, well, there's a lot of stuff going on in the record, and one person cannot reproduce everything happening in the record as far as all the synths go, but you gotta pick the main parts and just try to do those. I mean, that's a key part that recurs throughout the song, and of course having this, that's a critical part because there's a break near the end where that comes in, and if you're not there, the whole thing just dies. So that's an important part. Before we move on to another song, I wanted to just point out something about the brass sounds on the MODX that you might find helpful. In several instances, certain songs, I wanted brass sounds that had the ability to do falls. And let me give you an example of a fall. I've pre-selected here attribute single, so single part performances are only being shown. They're the ones in green. And then I selected brass. And now I'm going to go to, let's start with one called Dynamic Brass AF. And I got to find it. Let's just search for it. Dynamic, there it is. Okay. So, Dynamic Brass AF. And it's got this fall feature, and I'm going to give you the names of let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, a total of 5 brass sounds that I've found and I've used. Number one, I like the sounds. And number two, they all have this fall feature built in. The fall feature is if I hold down the Assign 1 button, which is over on the left next to the mod wheel, and I hit a note, you get that fall. That's a brass fall. And that's pretty effective on some tunes. So let me just give you quickly the 5 brass sounds that do have the fall feature implemented. And they are, number 1, Dynamic Brass AF. The next one is called Accent. Accent MF. And here it is. Holding down the Assign 1 button. Next one we have Bright Section. BRIGHT section. There it is. Okay, and the fourth one that I've been using is called Big Brass AF. Let's just do Big Brass, AF 1 and 2 it's called. So it's got the fall feature. And finally there's one called Sforzando, SFOR. Sforzando AF 1 and 2. And let me show you one more thing about this fall feature, and for some of the string sounds have it also. And I've pulled up the performance for the song Le Freak by Chic, and I throw in some of these string falls, which is this. And it's pretty effective in a live setting. As you can hear, it adds a lot of reverb to the string. If I hit the note without holding down the Assign 1 button, you get this. Okay, so I've got a pretty good amount of reverb applied, but when I hold down the Assign 1 button to do the fall effect, you get a much bigger and longer reverb. And it's effective in a live setting. And you can do a whole chord. Here's an A minor chord. Another performance where I use the string fall feature is the song Car Wash. Yeah, it's kind of a fun song that we play. People always like it, and it's kind of cool. It's got some pretty key string parts. You know, it's from the disco era, and a lot of disco songs had strings. It was just a pretty common thing that was done in those days. So the beginning of the song, there's this string line, and well, first of all, at the beginning of the song, I use this. So you'll notice I'm hitting a D4, okay, and then I'm moving the pitch bend wheel all the way forward, and it moves it up an entire octave. As I pointed out a little earlier, I'm going to review that. If you hit edit for that part, oh, excuse me, where's the string part? Oh, here it is, yeah. If you hit edit for this guy, you'll see that for pitch bend plus, I gave it a plus 12, which is an entire octave. So when I hold down D4, and then move the pitch bend wheel, it goes up an entire octave. Yeah. Also, I make use of the fall effect, which is this. And I'll do that at the beginning of each chorus, typically. And I really enjoy playing the string intro to this song. It goes. Yeah, so there's that fall, and that's just a D minor chord. Holding down the assigned 1 key. And then, I'm sorry, I do that before the verse comes in, not the chorus. Yeah, because then the verse starts. And there's a cool little piano line that comes in every second measure in the verse. So I've got this CFX Pop Studio Grand piano sound giving me that. And I just duplicated it. You'll see. Oh no, I've got 2 pianos layered. Yeah, I'm sorry. The CFX Pop Studio Grand layered with acoustic piano DA. And that acoustic piano DA is a very bright piano, and I found that to be very effective in live settings. It really cuts through. The more mellow pianos are nice if you're doing solo piano somewhere, but in a live setting with a band, if you want to cut through and have the keyboard heard more clearly, you want the brighter piano sounds. Let's take a quick look at the song Forget You by CeeLo Green. And this one I've got set up with low, bright piano sounds down on the left end of the keyboard. So it starts... And that same progression, which is C to a D7 to an F back to C, that repeats for most of the song. There is kind of I guess you'd call it a bridge section, where it goes to E minor, A minor, etc. Basically, though, the song is just the piano sound, and then I have an organ that comes in, just as in the original version. The organ comes in after CeeLo sings Forget Her Too, and I've got the organ set up. Well, first of all, let's look at the piano sound. What do we have here? We have something called tacky, which sounds like this. It's a very bright tack style. A tack piano, or the tacky. It's kind of like a honky tonk old piano, very bright. A little bit out of tune. And then I've also got that layered with a piano sound called Old and Squashed. So that's a heavily compressed piano sound, but also very bright, like an old upright. So those two layered together. And then the organ sound. That's just the good old, I love the name of this one, 8888-622-002. And of course, those numbers refer to the drawbar settings on a Hammond B3 organ. And that's what I used for this gospel-y sound. So that's a good, bright, kind of rock and roll type of an organ sound. So that's Forget You. Let's look at the Michael Jackson song Billie Jean. Not an easy song for the keyboard player, or the singer, or anybody else for that matter. Michael Jackson songs, some of them, many of them, if not most, have some pretty elaborate arrangements and chords that are a little more advanced than your average rock and pop tunes. So Billie Jean, there's a lot going on. It's a cool tune. So it starts with just the drums and the bass doing that bass drum riff, and then this low pizzicato string sound comes in. So I've got, as you can see, I've got 3 parts creating that sound, and part 1 is a performance called symphonic pizzicato. You'll see that part 2 is the same thing as part 1, and I doubled it because it's kind of a, if you listen to one of them, it's a very soft sound, and I've got the volume all the way up to 127. So in order to make it louder, I simply doubled the part. And then layered with those 2 pizzicato string sounds, I have a pan flute sound. Very soft. And it's just kind of, it just adds a little something, a little extra fullness to it. So that's that. I'm going to show you another trick that I've had to do on some of these performances. And in this case, there's this little part that comes in with the Fender Rhodes piano. So it's a D chord to an F sharp minor chord. And a little synth part does this, right? But I want to sustain that Rhodes chord. I've got the sustain pedal held down, and I'm sustaining both the Rhodes and the synth, which I don't want the synth to be sustained, so we can fix that easily. I clicked edit for the synth part, and I go down to mod control, and then here's all your controllers, and the one we want to turn off, of course, is sustain. So I'll hit exit. Now when I hold the sustain pedal, I've got the sustain pedal pressed down. The synth is no longer sustained with the sustain pedal, so I can sustain the Rhodes chord. Yeah, that's a good trick to know. Sometimes you want to not have a part be sustained when you press down the sustain pedal. Okay, so I'm going to overwrite this guy. Let me save him. Okay. Next, what else is happening? Well, after that part, then this tune is kind of cool because it starts really soft, and then it gradually builds. So the next part of the tune, where these chords come back, I've got scene 2. And when I go to scene 2, what just happened? Well, I unmuted part 7, right? Scene 1, part 7's muted. Scene 2, I turned off, I unmuted part 7. I also, at the same time, when I switched to scene 2, part 5 became muted. That's the Fender Rhodes sound, because I'm not using that for this section of the song. Now, by unmuting part 7, I've added some sustain to these low chords. And if you listen to the Michael Jackson original of Billie Jean, you'll see that the same thing kind of happens, where those chords become more sustained and a little less pizzicato. Let's move on in the song. Now, when I go to scene 3, I've gotten rid of that pan flute sound, and I've made the string part a little louder, where a little string melody comes in, and it's just and it's down low like that. It's very pretty. And then we come back to And finally, let me jump ahead to getting closer to the end of the song. Scene 4, what kicks in scene 4? Well, a couple of things. I've unmuted parts 6 and 8, right? Parts 6 and 8 now unmuted, and part 8 is that high string line that comes in. So that's what I needed part 6 for. It's a performance that I kind of tweaked, and I called it Disco Strings DB. That's my initials. So that kicks in. And also there's a little synth part that comes in this final section of the song. Yeah, a little synth part. And on the record, I guess the sound was something like this. It's called Early Lead. It was similar to that. So that's Billie Jean. A lot of things happening. It's not an easy song for a keyboard player. But there you have it.